Well, there was something else, another article about Bill Gates that came out today that said he's just been indicted. He's been indicted in the Netherlands for lying to the public about the COVID vaccine. And he's going to have to go to trial. You think that he wants to go to trial here in the United States of America? You think maybe that's one of the reasons he chose to give $50 million to Kamala Harris?
The speech you just saw was not covered by any legacy media channels, and yet it has broken the internet in the past couple of days. People on X have been posting and reposting it again and again to spread the word of what might be the biggest story of corruption and cover-up in recent years. And I'm going to show you why everything he said in his speech is accurate. As you just heard the man, Bill Gates has been indicted in a COVID-19 vaccine-related case in the Netherlands and now faces trial. Now, just like most of you, I was surprised to hear this because I haven't seen or heard anything about this case on mainstream media. In fact, when I tried to Google it, nothing showed up, but this is when I found out how everyone is involved in this cover-up. Just look at what shows when you search Bill Gates indictment on Google. As you can see, there are no articles about this even if you keep scrolling. However, if you search the same thing on a different engine like DuckDuckGo, the results are completely different. There are multiple articles covering the case and explaining how the billionaire has just been indicted in a Dutch court. I mean, the fact that Google has to hide it just goes to show how much influence Gates has and how many ultra-rich companies are trying to bury this story. But we already knew that, to be honest, so for now, let's just read one of these articles to find out what Google does not want us to read. According to this news story, a Dutch court has ordered that Bill Gates will face trial in the Netherlands over his involvement in misleading the public about the safety of COVID-19 vaccines. The plaintiffs filed the lawsuit last year, naming Gates, along with former Dutch Prime Minister and current NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, members of the Dutch government's COVID-19 Outbreak Management Team, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, and the Dutch state itself. The plaintiffs argue that Gates, through his involvement with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum, were involved in a far-reaching agenda referred to as the Great Reset Project, and it sought to exploit the global crisis in order to implement sweeping societal changes, all under the guise of combating the pandemic. Now, sadly, according to these articles, one of the 7 individuals whose identities have been redacted in public documents has since died after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And in their latest hearing, one of the plaintiffs was represented by her father because she could no longer speak. The father explained that his daughter had been healthy prior to receiving the COVID-19 vaccine, but became sick afterward and lost her ability to speak. He expressed his desire to speak to Bill Gates directly about his daughter's condition. Now, of course, Bill Gates isn't going to talk to some poor man whose daughter is extremely sick. So he just hired the largest litigation firm in the Netherlands and argued that the Dutch court had no jurisdiction over him because he lives in the United States. However, the court refuted this claim and ruled that it does have jurisdiction over Gates. The court made this ruling because it found sufficient evidence that the claims against Gates and the other defendants are connected and based on the same complex of facts. Now, the reason why this indictment is a huge problem for Bill Gates is because it sets a precedence. It tells other people living in Europe that they can also sue him if they were hurt by the vaccine. So I will not be shocked if we see him facing legal proceedings in other parts of the world as well. And while all of this is happening, for some reason a man who has been bipartisan for 2 decades suddenly decides to throw $50 million behind Kamala Harris only days after his indictment. Now, according to the New York Times report, Gates has not publicly endorsed Ms. Harris, and his $50 million donation to a nonprofit Democratic-aligned political action committee was intended to remain private. I can believe that because, trust me, this donation just makes him look guilty and desperate. Now, even though reps for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation charity declined to comment, citing anonymous sources, the Times reported that the charitable foundation is significantly concerned about potential cuts to family planning and global health programs if Mr. Trump is elected. Well, they should be concerned, because Trump and many of his supporters like RFK Jr. have been waging a war against the billionaire's alleged tactics for years. Just listen to what the former presidential nominee had to say about the philanthropic activities of Bill Gates.
Bill Gates has taken over control of WHO, and it's become his vessel for, what he calls philanthrocapitalism, which is a way of making a lot of money by controlling these international institutions that make public health policy. And, for example, to get the WHO, which funds most of the African health departments, to use its power and leverage over those departments to mandate vaccines for the children in those countries. And those vaccines are made almost invariably by companies in which Gates has a private financial interest, or which his foundation has a private financial interest. It was the same thing that he did with the Green Revolution in Africa. He got African countries to switch from traditional agriculture and switch it to GMO monocultures. Gates did bring in the corporations that he, owns, Coca-Cola, to buy the corn syrup and the Kraft cheese and McDonald's and Monsanto and Cargill and all these other corporations to build the infrastructure for these GMO products, to build the supply chain, and then create those products and sell them to U.S. corporations. And it's been an absolute calamity for the people of Africa. And I think there's 30 million additional people who have become food insecure as a direct result of Gates's Green Revolution. And but Gates and his companies have made a killing on it. Literally a killing.
He has also heavily criticized Bill Gates for buying up so much American land, and I think we need to hear why he's against it.
Hey, everybody, here I am in Sherwood, Connecticut, on Sherwood Island. There's the little woodchuck hall. Shirley Troubadour asked a question about why Gates and China are being allowed to buy up all the farmland in our country. And I'm going to tell you something that I had an experience with. I spent many years, about 20 years, suing the factory farms, the big hog farms, and the big chicken producers like Tyson and Bo Pilgrim and Frank Perdue. But Smithfield Foods was the biggest pork producer. And Smithfield came to the state of North Carolina. They built a slaughterhouse that could process 30,000 pigs a day. And then they had a partner named Wendell Murphy, who was in the state Senate, and he passed 28 laws in the North Carolina State Senate making it illegal to sue a factory farm.
So by giving so much money to Kamala, Bill Gates is basically trying to make sure that he will have a president who will support him even if things get rough. And while this indictment might be the last straw, I think Bill Gates has another reason to stop Trump from winning the election. We all certainly know about his history with Jeffrey Epstein and how the two of them were very close. Of course, later on, he said he feels bad about ever hanging out with that monster.
And, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on.
However, feeling bad about your actions doesn't mean he isn't guilty. Of course, thanks to some mind-boggling legal reasons, the names of Epstein's partners have not been released to the public, but according to Elon Musk, that might change very soon.
I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
And I only ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes. Reid Hoffman was my vice president of business development at PayPal.
Yeah.
24 years ago.
Does he seem nervous to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's terrified of a Trump victory.
Because of the disclosure that would follow?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think he's certainly ideologically not aligned with Trump anyway, but I think he is concerned about the Epstein situation.
If the Tesla founder is telling the truth, this is very bad news for so many people, including multiple billionaires who were doing all of those vile and disgusting things on Epstein Island. So of course it makes perfect sense for them to support Kamala Harris, and it looks like Bill Gates has now bought a seat in that life raft by paying $50 million. Now, after personally seeing the total media blackout of this story, I can't say for certain how long this video will stay up. So please make sure to share it with everyone you can, because people really need to know what's going on. You can also support this channel by subscribing to it, and I promise I'll continue to bring you more stories that mainstream media refuses to talk about. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope to see you on the next one.